This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Whenever you're watching a presidential primary, you get introduced to a barrage of faces and names you've never heard of. And then when you see that they're clinging to 1% in the polls, you naturally wonder, why the hell are they still in this race? What would drive a person to even want to stay in a race that they're guaranteed to lose so unceremoniously? Is this just vanity, delusion, or something else? And that leads us to the tragic case of Conor Roy, who may have been blessed with financial abundance, but at the cost of emotional isolation. And when looking back on his life, a life that he could have done anything with, he has nothing to show for it. But one thing is for certain, Conor Roy was interested in politics from a young age. And what do you give the boy who has everything? Surely becoming President of the United States isn't too much to ask. So let's take a deeper look at the life patterns of Conor Roy to understand what makes him tick. No matter what happened in his life, it seems as if Conor Roy was born to live a solitary existence. Conor is the eldest of Logan's 4 children, but also the only child born to a different mother, making him half sibling, half only child. And being the firstborn son wasn't easy, as no matter how much Logan claims everything he's done for his children, his company is the real baby he's proudest of, the only child he's truly dedicated his life to. Before the other children were even born, Conor was left behind with his mother, not seeing his father for a full 3 years as he was too busy, always taking second place to a phone call or a meeting, which would have made him feel more like an afterthought than an heir to his throne.
Can I wait for you to finish a few calls? Yeah, I think so, Pa. I've had a bit of practice.
Conor.
And to make matters worse, his mother, his only true caregiver, then went into psychiatric care when he was a child, abandoning Conor with nothing but Victoria sponge cake to soothe his emotional needs. Logan would then go on to have 3 children with Caroline Collingwood, which would only further this feeling that Conor was a mistake, and that once Logan had the right setup, he would start his first real family. As from Logan's perspective, who's more likely to deliver stronger children that he could breed to take over his empire? Conor's mother, who needed to be put into psychiatric care for the rest of her life, or Caroline, a wealthy aristocrat? And it's hard to say whether it was nature or nurture, but there is undeniably a difference between Conor and the rest of the Roys. Kendall, Roman and Shiv love to compete, whereas Conor is passive, playing the role of peacemaker in the family, always wanting others to make decisions for him.
I don't want to engage. I'm water. I flow.
His siblings would joke that he was the first pancake, the one that you accidentally burn to get out of the way before you get the rest of the batch right. Conor just never had that fire in him. After losing his mother and barely seeing his father, he got used to just taking whatever he was left with and making do. This base survival instinct then creates a feedback loop of not being taken seriously by anyone in the family, as despite being the eldest, Logan always treats him like he's a tall kid.
Conor! Primo! How are you?
Never expecting anything from him and never trusting him with any real responsibility. In a family obsessed with power and status, Conor is virtually invisible. Even when the other siblings confront Logan about everything bad he's done, they call him out for ignoring Conor his whole life. But they're no different. Even on a night that's meant to be all about him, Conor gets the least airtime, as they insensitively talk business right in front of him like he's not even there. He's always the neglected afterthought, never taken into serious consideration, to the point Kendall can refer to himself as Logan's eldest son and no one bats an eye. Or even at his own wedding, when Roman and Kendall receive the important call, without ever acknowledging it, they unconsciously prioritize finding Shiv so she can speak to her father on the phone and only seek Conor out later once it's far too late. And unlike Shiv, he never even questions what took them so long. He just accepts it, because that's what his life has conditioned him to expect. Living on a deserted ranch is a perfect metaphor for Connor's existence. His adult life still accidentally mirroring the same pattern as his childhood, watching the others compete while he gets left behind in isolation, not being an equal part of the family or the firm or anything. Having all this money is both a blessing and a curse, as without it he wouldn't be as financially and emotionally dependent on his family and could therefore relate to everyday people as he'd be forced to engage in everyday activities. But with it, he's in an empty ivory tower alone, with nothing but money to help him solve his problems. So it's no surprise that when it comes to finding love, he knows no other way to coax people into spending time with him than paying them. Willa was initially a call girl, and despite barely seeming into him at first, Connor makes it his mission to keep her around. Every time she tries to come up with an excuse to abandon him, like everyone in his life eventually does, he finds a new way to sweeten the deal so she'll stay, like giving her an allowance, funding her theatre ambitions, and eventually even moving to New York.
That love is a strange and peculiar affliction. It's like a virus. So could you please just stay here for a while, and maybe you'll catch it.
Connor doesn't need her love for him to be authentic, he just needs one consistent relationship in his life so he can finally feel seen. Someone that actually depends on him, even if it's only financially. For most people, having someone respond, "Fuck it, how bad could it be?" to our marriage proposal would be a deal breaker. Whereas for Connor, as long as he doesn't have to go back to being alone, then this is the best news he's ever heard. Having lived a life of extraordinary privilege, Connor's understanding of how the world works is completely skewed, as his money has always allowed him access to the finish line others had to work hard to get to. So if he is finally going to do something with his life, then becoming president appears like the only goal worth the hassle of competing for, as almost anything else would be a step down for him. But Connor suffers from the Dunning-Kruger effect. He mistakes the little he knows about politics to be the most important information, as to him his political interest and knowledge feels remarkably high when compared to his interest or knowledge in anything else. But in reality it's not remotely competitive with anyone that's worked in politics before. But why does Connor want to be president? What emotional needs would that fulfill? Now that he's getting older and his siblings are becoming more accomplished, it's becoming clear that his life has had no meaning. No one respects how he spent his time or how he squandered his opportunities, which only further validates the family's decision to neglect him. Whereas once you're a real presidential candidate, then no one can ever say you didn't do anything with your life. It whitewashes over all your failures. And if he actually won, it would change everything. It would rewrite history. All it takes is one huge Hail Mary shot to go from zero to hero, to turn the tables and become the only Roy child worthy of note. Just imagine how validating it would be for him to know millions of Americans walked into a voting booth and legally declared, "I believe in Connor Roy." His dad may have ignored him as a child because he was too busy meeting presidents and cutting backroom deals, but if he was in that Oval Office, in the only position more senior than the CEO of Waystar, then everyone would be vying for his attention. He wouldn't just be needed by his father and siblings, he'd finally be respected. But because he's never earned anything real in his whole life, Connor doesn't want to actually do the work. He just wants to play president. So he'll settle for Logan merely indulging his delusions for a few moments, like a kid at Christmas. As just like with Willa, it doesn't matter if it's genuine. Just having the time and attention of anyone makes Connor feel visible. All he needs is to be considered, to be in the running. As unlike his other siblings, that's one thing he never got from his father. But unsurprisingly, for a conflict-avoidant man with no work experience, he's not taken seriously as a candidate either, and barely musters a single solitary % in the polls. That 1% now becoming the only thing that matters in his life, the only thing he'll be remembered by. So to hold on to it, he chooses to turn his own wedding into a media spectacle, as the more exposure the voters have to the Connor virus, the more likely they are to catch it. But in the end, like always, his big day gets drowned out by an even bigger news story, and he gets married with no friends or family present, as they all have more important things to do. As that's the story of Conor Roy's life, whether it's campaigning for the attention of his father or for the heart of the Rust Belt, no matter how much he personally needs to feel fulfilled, he always ends up desperately clinging to just 1%. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Everything is online these days, and there's no better way to deliver a strong first impression than an elegant, professional-looking website. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform you can use to build your brand and grow your business, so whether it's showing off your creative work or selling a product or a service, Squarespace makes this process so much smoother. For example, let's say you're a blogger. Squarespace helps you to categorize, share, and schedule your posts so your followers can stay up to date with all your content. They also provide an internal video studio app on your phone or tablet, so even if you're not much of an editor, you can easily assemble professional-looking videos that engage your audience. Or if you're a YouTuber like me, you can embed your videos on your Squarespace site, so all of your work from other platforms is available in one place, like a virtual calling card. So go to squarespace.com for your free trial, and then once you're ready to launch your page, use my promo code OBSERVATION to get 10% off your first website or domain purchase. Well, if you've made it this far, firstly, thank you for watching, but if you could now give the video a like, possibly even leave a comment and click on that subscribe button, it will encourage that mysterious algorithm to do its thing. And if you want to support the channel personally, you can check out my Patreon.